It was evening. Anastasia Vale, a young woman from a very wealthy family, had parked her car on the highway and was sitting beside the tire, smoking a cigarette. This was her daily routine. Every day she came to that exact spot, sat alone for hours, and smoked. Suddenly, a 24-year-old young man, Jasper Hall, passed by. His bicycle had a flat tire, so he was walking it along the road. When Jasper came near the car and saw Anastasia smoking, he stopped and said, "Smoking isn't a good habit." Anastasia glanced at him once and then looked away as if no one was there. Without saying anything else, Jasper continued on his way. The next day, Jasper was again riding his old bicycle back from the city and saw Anastasia in the same spot, smoking. He thought for a moment about telling her to stop, but he remembered how she had ignored him yesterday. He quietly kept riding home. On the third day, Anastasia was there again. Jasper arrived and once more felt the urge to tell her to stop, but he didn't have the courage and began to ride on. Just as he was about to leave, Anastasia called out, "Hey, come here." Surprised, Jasper wondered why she was calling him, but he parked his bike at the roadside and walked over. In a sharp tone, Anastasia asked, "Why didn't you tell me to stop smoking today?" Jasper was startled, and Anastasia suddenly burst out laughing. Embarrassed, Jasper grabbed his bike and hurried away while she called after him, but he didn't stop. The scene shifted to an opulent house where Anastasia's parents were scolding her. Her father, Charles Reed, said, "It's time to get married," but Anastasia replied, "I don't want to marry. I like being alone." That evening, there was a party at the house, but she stayed in her room and slept. One day, Jasper again passed along the highway and found her there as usual. Seeing him, Anastasia ran after him when he tried to escape. She told him to stop, but he didn't. Frustrated, she struck his bicycle with her car, knocking him down. Jasper fell, badly hurt, and his bicycle broke. Anastasia got out to see if he was alive. When she saw he was, she left. Driving away, she suddenly began to cry, pulling over to sob uncontrollably. After a while, she started the car again and returned to look for him, but he was gone. A pickup driver had given the injured Jasper a ride. He lived in a village near the highway and worked as a servant in a city house. The next day, Anastasia returned to the same spot, waiting, but Jasper never came. Days passed with no sign of him. One day, while driving through a residential society, she suddenly spotted Jasper carrying bags of vegetables and fruit into a large house. Overjoyed, she turned her car toward him. Seeing her, Jasper froze, then quickly went inside. Feeling slightly embarrassed, Anastasia drove away. The next morning, she hid behind a tree outside that house. As she expected, Jasper came out to water the small garden. Quietly, she walked up and said, "I regret what I did. Please forgive me." Startled, Jasper turned and said fearfully, "I haven't done anything to you. Please, just let me live." When she apologized, he left without a word, and she returned home ashamed. Angry that he wouldn't accept her apology, Anastasia summoned two of her servants. "Do you want double salary this month?" she asked. They eagerly said yes. "Then you must do something for me, kidnap someone and bring him to the place I tell you." The servants were shocked. "Madam, we are poor people. What if the police get involved? What about our families?" "If you refuse, I'll fire you," she said coldly. Terrified, they agreed. Anastasia gave them Jasper's address and told them to bring him to the highway where she always sat. She then bought a brand new modern bicycle, loaded it into her car, and went to the spot to wait. After a while, the servants brought Jasper. His eyes were blindfolded, his hands tied, and he was trembling. They left him there and departed. Anastasia sat against her car, lit a cigarette, and waited. Jasper, crying, asked, "Are you that same girl?" "Yes," she replied. "I'm from a poor family," he said. "I'm my parents' only support. Why are you after me?" Please let me go. If something happens to me, what will happen to them? You'll be fine. Don't worry, Anastasia said. She fetched the new bicycle from her car and set it in front of him. I'm sorry for what I did before and for today, she said, removing the blindfold and untying his hands. Jasper stared at the bicycle, then at her. Are you crazy? Is this how you apologize? Kidnapping someone? Yes, I'm crazy, she said. Everyone says I'm crazy, my friends, my parents. Even my first love, Watson, said it. You can say it too. Tears filled her eyes. Jasper was speechless, then slowly came back and sat in front of her. I'm sorry, he said gently. I was angry because of what happened. Please forgive me. Anastasia stayed silent, drawing lines in the dirt as tears rolled down her cheeks. Jasper leaned against the car beside her. They sat quietly for a long time. Eventually, she stood, got into her car, and drove away. Jasper remained there in thought until nightfall, then rode the new bicycle home. The next morning, he went to work, left early, and waited at their usual spot, but she didn't come. Days passed as he searched the city and nearby neighborhoods, but he never found her. Finally discouraged, he started home late one evening. As he reached their usual spot, he saw a car starting to leave. He shouted her name, but the sound was lost in the engine's roar. He pedaled hard, but Anastasia disappeared into the night. The next morning, instead of going to work, he went back and waited all day without food or water. An hour before sunset, exhausted, he suddenly saw her car. Overjoyed, he ran to her and hugged her tightly, crying. Anastasia looked at him in shock and then slapped him hard. You ruined my clothes. Don't you bathe? You smell terrible. She yelled. Despite the slap, Jasper smiled. She sat beside the car tire and lit a cigarette. Jasper sat next to her, rubbing his cheek. May I say something if you promise not to get angry? He asked softly. Go on, she said carelessly. Why do you smoke so much? Please don't. It's bad for your health. She took a drag and blew smoke in his face. He coughed and she laughed loudly, blowing smoke at him again. He coughed harder. When she was about to do it a third time, Jasper snatched the cigarette and put it out. Anastasia slapped him again. He just smiled at her. After a moment of silence, she said, I'm sorry. I could take slaps like that all my life, Jasper replied with a grin. She looked at him in surprise, eyes moist. Everyone says I'm crazy, she whispered. I accept your craziness, he said. Anastasia stood. That's impossible. Don't even think about it. And if I ever see you near me again, I'll kill you. With that, she got in her car and drove off. Jasper could only watch, helpless. The next evening, returning from work, he again passed the spot. Anastasia was there as usual. He stopped for a while, still on his bike, then began to leave. She called out, Come here. Overjoyed, Jasper ran to her and sat down. She said, Don't ever talk about love with me, but we can be good friends. Tears filled his eyes as he nodded. Then he hugged her without thinking. She pushed him away and gave him a sharp slap. Jasper held his cheek and looked at her with gentle eyes. For the first time, Anastasia asked softly, What's your name? The boy said, My name is Jasper Halle. He then asked, What's your name? Smiling, the girl replied, My name is Anastasia Vale. After that, they talked for a long time. When it got very late, the girl said, I should go now. Jasper asked, At least tell me your address. Anastasia Vale gave him her home address. The next morning, before sunrise, Jasper took out his bicycle and went straight to Anastasia's house. It was a huge, luxurious mansion. He rang the bell, and a servant opened the door. Jasper was so astonished by the house that he wandered in a daze and accidentally bumped into an expensive vase, knocking it over and breaking it. The servant scolded him harshly. Who are you? I've been asking, but you're just staring around like a madman. Hearing the noise, Anastasia's father, Charles Reed, came and asked about the commotion. The servant explained everything. Charles told the servant to leave and asked Jasper, "Who are you and whom do you want to see?" Hesitantly, Jasper replied, "I'm Anastasia's friend." Surprised, Charles said, "Really? Did Anastasia call you her friend?" "Yes," Jasper answered. Charles invited him to sit and had a servant bring fresh juice for Jasper. Jasper was puzzled as to why Charles seemed so happy. Unable to hold back, he asked politely, "If you don't mind, may I ask why you're so happy?" Charles replied, "I'm happy because in the last 5 years, you're the first person Anastasia has called a friend." Then Charles began to tell Anastasia's story. When Anastasia was 10, her mother passed away. She fell into deep shock and became filled with anger and erratic behavior. The doctor said she could only heal with love, so I tried to keep her happy. I remarried, thinking a mother's love would help her recover, but my second marriage only increased her anger and instability. Because of her temper, her friends left her. School, college, university, anyone who became her friend left within days. She became completely alone. 5 years ago, when she turned 19, I asked my friend's son, Watson, to befriend her and eventually marry her. Watson agreed and began professing love to Anastasia. Happily, Anastasia accepted him as a friend and life partner. It seemed she was finally improving. But over time, Watson's behavior changed. One day, tired of her anger, he left her, calling her crazy as he went. From that day, Anastasia's condition worsened. She would go to university and then straight to her room, and in the evenings she'd sit by the highway smoking cigarette after cigarette. I tried many times to arrange her marriage, but even the mention of marriage made her furious. Today, seeing you as her friend brings me great joy. After hearing the whole story, Jasper said, "Sir, I promise you Anastasia will get better, she must. And sir, I love her deeply. Out of fear of losing her, I accepted her friendship. If it takes my life to heal her, I will gladly give it." Tears filled Charles Reed's eyes. Just then, the sound of something breaking came from Anastasia's room. Charles said, "Son, this happens every day. She refuses breakfast and breaks dishes." Jasper asked a servant for another breakfast tray and went into Anastasia's room. Seeing him early in the morning, Anastasia exclaimed in surprise, "Hey, what are you doing here?" Jasper replied, "Nothing, just came to see my dear friend. Here, have some breakfast." Anastasia took the tray, set it on the bed, picked up a piece of bread, and put it in Jasper's mouth. She smeared butter on his face, took a sip of juice, and poured the rest on his head. Then she took out her phone, sat next to Jasper, and began taking selfies with him. After that, she grabbed his hand and led him out of the room. Jasper straightened himself up, then brought another breakfast tray and knocked again. When Anastasia opened the door, he was standing there with the tray. She struck the tray hard, and it hit Jasper's face, making his nose bleed. Silence fell. No one dared say anything to Anastasia. She shut the door, and Jasper, face bloody, started to leave the house. From her window, Anastasia watched him go. When she saw him walking away, she burst into tears, ran outside, and hugged him tightly, crying. Then she grabbed a nearby water hose and sprayed Jasper until he was completely soaked. She told a servant to bring fresh clothes. The servant brought a simple shirt and trousers, which Jasper changed into. For the first time, Anastasia ordered breakfast and ate it in front of Jasper, even feeding him. Seeing this, Charles Reed felt great happiness. From then on, Jasper came to her house every morning. Sometimes they went shopping together, sometimes to the park for a walk. Meanwhile, doctors were checking her and reported that she was improving well. Jasper decided to take Anastasia to his village. Surrounded by fresh air, peaceful surroundings, and farm animals, Anastasia felt very happy. After spending several days there with Jasper's parents, Anastasia returned home fully recovered. For the first time, the doctors declared her completely healthy. One day, Jasper brought his parents to Anastasia's house in the city, where her family welcomed them warmly. After the meal, Jasper's parents said to Charles Reed, "We've come to ask for your daughter Anastasia's hand for our son." Before Charles could reply, Anastasia stood up and said, "I do not accept this proposal. You are poor people and we are rich. Can Jasper give me all the luxuries I have in this mansion?" Jasper stood silent, eyes moist. Anastasia then said, "All of you, please leave," and when they were about to go, she placed $1 million in cash in their hands, saying, "This is payment for everything you did for me during my illness." Jasper put the cash back on a nearby table and said, "We may be poor, but we do not sell our love or our true feelings. I have loved you selflessly, and my parents have always loved you like a daughter. We don't need your money. And yes, your memories are enough for me to live my life." Then he left with his parents. A few days later, Anastasia became engaged to someone from a wealthy family like hers. Meanwhile, Jasper would come home from work and sit at the very spot on the highway where Anastasia used to sit, smoking cigarettes beside his bicycle tire. One day, while looking at her engagement photos on her phone, Anastasia began browsing the rest of her gallery. There were many pictures of her and Jasper together, photos he had taken while she was ill. Looking at them, she thought, perhaps no one could care for me the way Jasper did. She turned off her phone and lay down, but all night she thought of Jasper, remembering every moment they had spent together. This became her daily routine. Jasper sat alone on the highway, and Anastasia sat at home, looking at old photos and feeling sad. One day, Anastasia's fiancé visited and, noticing her sadness, said, "Come on, let me take you out." Without asking questions, she agreed. They drove out of the city, and she didn't realize they were heading toward that same highway. After a long drive, they arrived at her fiance's farmhouse, lush green fields, fruit trees, a beautiful lake, and domestic animals. For a while, the beauty of the place eased her sadness. As evening approached, Anastasia said she wanted to go home. On the way back, she looked out at the fields near the highway. After a while, they reached the exact spot where she used to sit during her illness. From the moving car, she saw Jasper sitting there with his bicycle. Seeing this, Anastasia burst into tears. Her fiancé tried to comfort her, but she couldn't stop crying. When they reached home, Anastasia went straight to her room and looked at old photos, weeping until she developed a fever. The next day, she took out the same car she used to drive to the highway and went there again. She parked and, just as before, leaned against the tire, lit a cigarette, and waited for Jasper. After a while, Jasper arrived. His beard had grown, and his eyes were red as if from crying. He saw Anastasia sitting there smoking just like the old days. He looked at her and began to cry. Without saying a word, he started to ride away, but Anastasia, weeping, called out, "Aren't you going to tell me to stop smoking?" Jasper parked his bicycle to the side and sat next to her. He took the cigarette from her hand and began to smoke it himself. He said, "Anastasia, when you left me, everything changed. After you left, my parents left me too. Society abandoned me. Everyone left. I've survived only with this cigarette, this bicycle, this highway, and your memories." Hearing this, Anastasia covered her mouth and sobbed uncontrollably. Jasper continued, "After you turned away from me, first my mother passed away, and then, unable to bear the pain of her loss, my father passed as well." Anastasia began crying loudly and hugged Jasper tightly. He embraced her and cried too. They stayed there, weeping together for a long time. As night fell, Anastasia took Jasper in her car and drove him to her house. First, she called her fiancé and broke off the engagement, and he accepted without objection. Then she told her father, "I want to marry Jasper tomorrow." Overnight, the wedding arrangements were completed, and the next day they were married. That evening, the two of them sat together by the highway once again. But this time, they talked about their future happiness.